Have you ever wished you had, a secret code to understand yourself? A way to finally figure out why you love being in a crowd or why you need total silence to recharge? Well, today, we're diving into a system that claims to do just that, the 16 personalities.
So let me ask you, do any of these sound like you? Maybe an architect, a defender, or an entertainer? And no, these aren't just cool nicknames somebody made up. They're actually archetypes from a framework that's designed to map out our own unique psychological wiring.
So what's the system behind all this? It's formally known as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or just MBTI for short. Now, the whole point of this isn't to cram you into a tiny box. It's more about giving you a language, a new way to understand how you see the world and why you make the choices you do. Think of it like a mirror for your mind.
Okay, so how does this whole thing actually work? Well, your personality type is boiled down to a 4-letter code, and each of those letters represents a preference on a specific spectrum. So let's decode these letters together one by one.
First up, we've got extroversion versus introversion. This one's all about where you get your energy from. Are you an extrovert, feeling totally recharged after interacting with people and the world around you? Or are you more of an introvert, finding that spending some quiet time alone with your thoughts is what really juices up your batteries?
Next, we have sensing versus intuition, and this is all about how you take in information. Are you a sensing type who really trusts the concrete facts and what your 5 senses are telling you? Or are you more of an intuitive type, always kind of reading between the lines, connecting the dots, and asking, yeah, but what if?
The third pair is thinking versus feeling, and it gets at your decision-making style. Thinkers are all about logic, facts, and consistency. They're asking, what makes the most logical sense here? But feelers, on the other hand, they're considering people, emotions, and their own personal values. Their big question is, what feels right, and how is this going to affect everyone involved?
And finally, we've got judging versus prospecting. This is about how you like to live your life in the outside world. Are you a judging type, someone who loves to have a plan, get things settled, and feel that sense of closure? Or are you more of a prospecting type, preferring to stay flexible and spontaneous, totally ready to explore any interesting path that opens up?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Those individual letters, they don't just stand alone. They actually start to form teams. The 16 types are grouped into 4 main roles, and each role shares 2 key traits that kind of give them a common playbook for how they approach life.
First up, we've got the analysts. They all share the intuitive and thinking traits. That's the N and T. This combination makes them super strategic, out-of-the-box thinkers who have both a vivid imagination and this really powerful sense of logic.
Analysts are just driven by this insatiable curiosity. They're fiercely independent, always looking to improve themselves, and they're not afraid to dive into controversial ideas. This intense focus on intellectual stuff is their superpower, for sure, but it can also make them seem a bit blunt or kind of like a lone wolf at times.
Next, let's talk about the diplomats. They combine the intuitive and feeling traits, the N and the F. This blend creates these really empathetic idealists who are driven by a deep desire to connect with other people and, I know it sounds cheesy, but to really make the world a better place.
You could call diplomats the humanists of the group. They are not interested in small talk. They crave deep, meaningful conversations. They're guided by their principles, not just by what's profitable or practical. And while this caring nature is a massive strength, their powerful optimism can sometimes be a blind spot, leaving them just a little bit vulnerable.
Our third role is the sentinels. They're defined by their sensing and judging traits, the S and J, and these are the true cornerstones of society. I mean, think of the most practical, reliable people you know, people who are dedicated to maintaining order and security. That's a sentinel.
Sentinels really thrive on consistency. They're the keepers of tradition and the defenders of the way things have always been done. And this makes them incredibly reliable. They're the people you can always count on. But that love for established methods can be a real challenge when things get unpredictable and they suddenly need to adapt on the fly.
And that brings us to our final role, the explorers. Sharing the sensing and prospecting traits, the S and P, these are the masters of the moment. They're spontaneous, quick-thinking, and incredibly adaptable. They absolutely excel in uncertain situations.
Explorers are all about freedom and new experiences. They're those dynamic, socially savvy people who are always first in line for the latest gadget or a new adventure. Their superpower is living in the moment, but that can also be their biggest challenge.
especially when it's time to deal with boring, routine tasks after all the initial excitement is worn off.
Okay, so we've got the 4 letters and the 4 big roles. Now let's see how they all come together to create specific personality types. And we're going to start with the single most common type found in the entire population.
And here you can see it. The single most common personality type is the ISFJ, also known as the Defender. They make up almost 14% of the population. So yeah, they are a true cornerstone of that Sentinel group we were just talking about.
The ISFJ Defender is this perfect blend of tradition and a genuine desire to do good. They're the supportive, reliable friends you know you can always count on. But a key challenge for them is that their deep humility can actually lead them to repress their own feelings, just to keep the peace and take care of everyone else.
Now for an analyst example, the INTJ, or the architect. These are visionary strategists, always driven by ambition and curiosity. And while their independence is a huge strength, their intense focus on logic can sometimes make them come across as a little cold. They don't just respect authority for authority's sake, they respect competence, and they have absolutely no problem questioning the status quo.
And from the diplomat role, let's take a look at the INFP mediator. INFPs are so creative, open-minded, and deeply empathetic. They live in this vibrant inner world full of passion and big ideas. But their lifelong challenge is often trying to find a way to balance that beautiful idealism with the practical demands of actually getting things done in the real world.
And finally, an explorer, the ESTP entrepreneur. These are bold, energetic, action-oriented people who thrive in the moment. They're incredibly perceptive and sociable, but that love for action can sometimes make them impatient, a bit prone to taking risks, and maybe a little blunt in how they communicate.
So, after seeing all these different types, it is so important to remember what this is really all about. The MBTI is not meant to put you in a box. It's a tool. It's a starting point for self-reflection that can help you understand your natural preferences and also appreciate why other people are, well, different. So, as we wrap this up, I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. When you consider those 4 big areas, how you get your energy, how you process information, how you make decisions, and how you organize your world, which of these traits really resonate most with you? Because the answer to that, well, that's the next step on your own journey of self-discovery.